So to start off with, that's my first talk at all. So no conference being before, just an attendee as you are. So bear with me, please. If you have questions in between, like connecting the dot between slides or whatever, just show up, ask a question, whatever. Otherwise, we can discuss them afterwards. That's no problem. What I'm talking about is like the new UI. We're delivering since 4.0. Just to give you a clue how it works a little bit, what stuff we use, where the data comes from, and especially at the end, what's your advantage of this? Because I honestly didn't plan it in the beginning when I started in, because when I started it was like this. Still, I mean, a few people will remember that one. I worked with it half a year. And then I started like, maybe we can change that a little bit. I mean, like compared to other solutions, like I don't know, how do you use like CouchDB, MongoDB or whatever. They have all like a pretty nice interface, and that's like more like from the 80s somewhat. I mean, that's like the first thing you see when you install Solr, and that's like, I don't know, that shouldn't be the first impression of it. Because you explore the tools and that's what you're seeing there. I don't know. So you're seeing something like that, and I don't know if explicit like the analysis is what you find useful, but just to show you how it looked behind the scenes, I mean that's like HTML code, and if you want to grab like information out of it, that's a little bit hard. There in between is somewhere the text hidden. So yeah, what we did is like, basically I will skip that slide, that's just for, I don't know. That was my first try. When I started off and posted to the mailing list, I really wasn't sure how the reaction would be like, I don't know, tell me about it, do you like it, or is it like crap, or just tell me, I'm not sure, should we go ahead? And then response from a community came and said like, yeah, sure guy, go ahead, that's what we should do. And that's basically what I'm still doing because I'm not a Java guy. So I'm in a Java project, not a Java guy. I'm relying on the other ones to deliver information, like building up APIs I can consume there, and that's what exactly you can do. So everything you will see in the following slides is what you can do as well with some monitoring tools or with some external application, as long as they are capable of HTTP requests. Like parsing XML or JSON, for example, to explain the difference between what we had before and what we have now. On the left side, you see like the typical application model. Your browser is just issuing HTTP requests to the server. The server generates the whole response, perhaps taking different modules in account and computing the whole response, sending it to your browser. Your browser displays that one, and that's it. Then there is like waiting time for you, like browser input, inputting text into form fields, or just clicking the button. In between, there is no interaction between client and server, and he's just waiting. Then the next request happens, and the same goes again. It's just static request response handling. And what you see on the right side is more like an interactive model. That's with Ajax, completely browser-based. Perhaps, would you mind, it's like, are you back-end developers, like front-end developers, business guys? Just back-end developers? Mainly, okay. Front-end developers? Okay, the rest is business, kind of, slowly, stuff. Journalists, press, whatever. Okay. So that's like, the new UI is completely running inside your browser, doing like stuff with that kind of things, like jQuery is a JavaScript framework. Semi.js is for routing kind of stuff. So as you have it on the client, on the server, you need it on the client as well to do some differentiation, like which core do you have selected and which is the page I should show you. D3 is a rendering library for JavaScript we use to render like the cloud graphs to show you some relation between the collection and the shards and replicas in that. And required.js is like, simply put, dependency management for JavaScript, because you need it there as well. Before we start into the slides, because this was one question came up more often on the mailing list, one difficulty people tend to have with that kind of application, from the top to the bottom. On the top you see just like the whole address bar would look like when you have it. The first part is just the protocol, HTTP and HTTPS. That's well known. Then there comes like the IP address and the port. That's known as well. In that case, like /solr/ is like a directory on your server, and it's just browsing the contents. Everything behind the hash doesn't reach your server. It just doesn't know about it. It's totally local in the browser. So what happens here is like we request that information from your server. It basically delivers one initial HTML page containing the whole JavaScript, and then use all stuff behind the hashbang for routing stuff. In that case, we are targeting like collection 1. That's a default core we are serving with the example. Then it's going to select the data import page for whoever does use that. Otherwise, it would be something like analysis, schema, browser, the replication page perhaps. And then there is like the last part is selecting inside the data import which handler to use. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So that doesn't come without the problems. Sometimes I don't know how many did ever see. How many of you did ever see that screen? Okay. So basically, the problem was that is like a little bit of legacy stuff because in Solr 3, almost any handler was bound to a core, meaning that as long as no core existed, we can't even get like global information about Java properties and like thread dumps and stuff like that. So it was a little bit easier to just show you that annoying message instead of like figuring out so what parts we could use. We changed that one, so we just now show you like you have no cores, but you can go ahead, middle on the left side, because we know the information around is now available without any cores. What I said in the beginning is like what I do in that case on the UI you can do as well. All the information you see as well in the following slides just consume different endpoints from Solr. The information you see on the left top, statistics is gathered from the loop request handler. The right top, the directory information is delivered from system info handler. Then you have the replication handler information, the ping request handler if you have defined the health check file, and the show request file handler to get perhaps defined admin extra, whoever does use it. Same for this one, the complete analysis. I showed you the sample from 3.x before. It looks more or less still like the same. We tried to put in a few improvements. But now, it's basically like this. That's JSON. I mean, I just zoomed in a little bit. So there is more on top, on bottom. But that's like a normal API would be, and you can just consume it with every other tool. If that would specifically make sense with the analysis handler, I don't know. But perhaps you have like a testing tool, which shows you if your analysis chain just changed and brought some unexpected results. Might be. But you can do, for example, as well stuff with the Solr info mbean handler, showing you all the information about like your filter cache, like your field cache, document stuff, and that. Like I said in one of the previous slides, the different model enables us to show you in-browser updates. So when I said like there is like request and response, there is just like a current snapshot of whatever is the current state. So there is no change in between. And what you can do on the new admin UI is like leaving that page open and just wait for changes coming in. That's the one like highlighted here in yellow. So between you open the page and there is this watch changes button, middle on the left. If you activate that, we just wait for changes incoming, and we show you that in the page itself. So no more like refreshing the page and like try to memorize different values, like was it 8 before and now it's 9 or 10 or I don't know. We just show you the difference, and we as well show you the delta of it between like first step and now. That's like more or less like kind of interface to our query. interface. I mean, that's the standard request handler you normally use when you want to get data out of Solr. That's like more just a pretty interface to get you started with the query thing, because we show you more or less all fields we know of, and you can put values in it, and then click the button. On the top, we show you the address bar, like a little bit under the typical address bar, so you can exactly see which is the request we generated for you, and you can go ahead with that one and integrate that in, I don't know, the Drupal module you are using, or some kind of other program you are using to query Solr. That's perhaps a view you already know. I mean, that's when you directly query the select handler for results. That is how it's look like, and that is exactly what we are using there. So it's not like we have some special kind of treatment you won't get. Everything we do there is what you can do as well. Exact same information. It's either JSON, it's otherwise XML, or if you are completely crazy like CSV, I don't know. But as long as your system can handle it, you're pretty good to go. Okay, I'm really crazy on speed. So hopefully you have a bunch of questions afterwards. The look request handler is what we use to gather like overview about file names and stuff like that, as well as information on like properties. Is it indexed? Is it stored? What's a little bit hidden below the overlay is the complete information about the analysis chain and possible defined properties, as well as here the top terms. And we can generate a histogram from that, given the fact that there would be enough information in it, which I don't have right now here. If you are curious, there is a simple possibility to see all the endpoints, because right now they are not really well documented in the wiki. It's like if you are using Chrome as a browser, Firefox works as well, Safari too. Just open up the console and you see all the requests we are doing, because it's JavaScript and it runs in your browser. There is nothing hidden, nothing running on the server or whatever. It's just exactly that endpoint running on HTTP. That's again just for showing purposes, like what the result looks like, and that's what we are using there. Sure, that works in cloud mode as well, because that's the same. I mean, like all the internal application stuff is hidden from us. I mean, from like the UI in that case, because it just decides internally if it runs in cloud mode and then does different things. If it doesn't run in cloud mode, it just grabs from the disk. Yeah, like different views on it. That's the information we get, like you can get as well. There are the address included where you can fetch all the information from. That's like a little overview where all the data comes from. I mean, that's like that's for the global stuff before you select core, for example. That's like more or less like a one-to-one mapping. Goes a little bit more crazy there. Because it combines different things. I mean, more or less most of them. It's pretty bad here. So on the left, you would normally see like the whole thing, like you have under the collection, like overview, analysis, documents, data import, replication, and that stuff. And that is actually what I tried mapping here to all the request handler available. Questions so far? No? I'm boring? Hopefully not. Okay. Now that's my PowerPoint skill. On the right, that are you, hopefully still smiling. What you did before is like use your browser to access all the information in Solr, because you can't get them otherwise. What you can do now is use as well your favorite tool, or perhaps another one as well, as long as I said before, is if it's capable of HTTP requests. So you can just gather that information because it's explicitly exposed by different endpoints. So you are able to do, like, for example, now that comes on the next slide, like different things. You can do your own monitoring for cloud if you want to, or you can like do your own monitoring for the data import stuff. It's like I said before, you don't have to open your browser anytime you want to monitor different things on Solr. You can just do it in your tool. Like, I don't know if you have Munin or Nagios in your complete environment running, and you want to know if it's still okay, then go and look there where you normally go if you want to see some information about monitoring and not check every specific tool you might or might not have. One thing, just to mention it, because it's a little bit different from the server-side model we had before. Like I said, everything which works in your browser. So, for example, if you have an AWS environment running and they have like internal IPs assigned, you can't access them in your browser. As soon as you can't access them in the browser, the admin UI can't neither. Yeah, like. Take, for example, a cloud setup, and they are internally communicating with internal IPs. That's fine for them internally because they know how to reach each other, but you are like looking from the outside, and you don't know how to map an internal IP to whatever you can reach. So, like I said, I'm obviously crazy on speed. That's more or less like the last slide I have. That's like telling you something about the use cases you might have or might not, just to give you an idea. I already said that on the previous slide. You can build your own monitoring tools. You can build like testing tools for the analysis chain. You can do the new thing. We have, Stephen had a talk about this, like integrating the schema API to make some changes there. Therefore, you don't have to rely on the admin UI. You can do that in whatever tool you like. For example, in like a Drupal module, which I use pretty often to integrate Solr search capabilities in their Drupal installation, but they can now manage it from externally. Other things like if you are using the data import handler, you can monitor that as well. Or perhaps you can build up a replication dashboard because you know all the instances you are running and where you are replicating from. The problem the server in that case has is it doesn't know exactly about all the instances. Normally you just configure master and slave, and that's all we know and all we can show. But you can gather this information from every single instance and then show like are they all in time, or are they like 20 commits ahead or behind. Ahead doesn't work, but behind. In the worst case. A little bit talking about what you plan to do is like integrating more of the fancy stuff we have. Like I already said, the schema API is a plan. Like the collection API if you are running in cloud mode, because it's available right now but still not in the admin UI. And the other thing would be as well cloud mode related. If you are running cloud mode, like different views on it, because it works maybe if you have 10 nodes, but as soon as you start like having 100 or 1,000 nodes, guy showed me a screenshot like looking like green bullet, you are not able to see like single lines even more, and I guess that's not that helpful as it was imagined in the beginning. So yeah, now it's already time for your questions. I hope like there are a few. Yeah.
Well, I should start by saying I think actually for me this is very interesting. So I do think it's very relevant. Well, my question is possibly the reverse of what you might be thinking, in that you're sort of providing a mechanism to open up the admin interface and make it very accessible. How would you propose locking it down so that it's exclusive to certain network connections? And not sort of just generally public. So it still runs, just not for everyone.
Yeah, that is what we generally advise, that it's not open to the public. Like normal things are you block external access completely. First would be like open an SSH connection, like SSH tunnel, like just proxy the port on your server. That might work. Otherwise, depending on the container you are running, like put on some IP restrictions, for example, or just basic authentication would work.
Okay, so standard technologies outside.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Block it within
yeah, like I said, because it's like completely HTTP based, so everything which works somewhere else works there too, completely. What still would be the point, as soon as you're able to access it, right now there is no possibility to make it like read-only mode, because as soon as you're able to access, for example, the query handler, you are able to issue a delete request as well, and we can't actually not avoid that. But it works as every other web application as well. Yeah, please.
I'm very glad that I'm in your session today because I'm working on Apache Drill exactly on the same issue. But some deeper questions around. Can you maybe point out the Jira issues? So because I'm lazy and not want to trawl your entire repository to see where your design documents are and so on. Do you have some guidance there where I can essentially reuse your stuff, or what's your advice there? Just go there and trawl it.
Not yet. I mean, that depends a little bit on what you want to know. I mean, I can explain you the whole thing because I built it from the beginning, but there is no like deep documentation on it. It was more like on a request and time-based stuff. So
are there like 2 or 3 top Jira issues that I could look at and say, okay, here is all the information I need that I could somehow replicate that for a drill? Since
that works since 2 years, that would be more than a few, but I can point out the starting, if you like to.
Yes.
As well as I had a screenshot in there, like the mailing list before. Sure. Otherwise, you can contact me directly. That's absolutely no problem, and I will tell you everything I know about it.
Right.
Like I said, because there is no much documentation about it right now. Even for others interesting, like joining us there, that would be like a hands-on stuff-based session. I don't know, but sure, completely agreed. I mean, I can tell you more like the stuff I already told you in deeper knowledge, in deeper view. Sure, absolutely.
Right. So in particular, that was the kind of warm-up question, because you said you have some time. In particular, I would be interested in 2 things. The one is long-running tasks. So, you know, that's a query engine we're building, and it could take, you know, even a couple of seconds, right? 10, 20 seconds. And that's not exactly what HTTP is good at. Yeah. So that's the first question, or actually the second. And the third would be, if you have that case, how to deal with varying result set sizes. So we don't know ahead of time how big the result set size would be. So any ideas or guidance regarding this?
First, I mean the second one, that's like you already have to provide some endpoint for the user to check if the query is available or not. Or are you really running synchronous mode? I mean, like if
right. What happens is essentially, I don't know if you know BigQuery, whatever that interface there. You know, you enter your SQL query, you hit run, and then at some point in time, you know, you will see the results.
Okay, but the request is just waiting for you. It's not the request.
It's polling. It's just
okay.
Gets 1-0.
Yeah, then that's essentially what you would do there as well, because the HTTP connection normally stays open that long. The reason why I asked was I know systems where you just get immediately the response with the unique identifier and you keep
Exactly. That's what we're doing. Yes.
Okay.
In the design we have.
Then that's exactly what you're doing there as well. I mean, you're just polling that endpoint until it's reachable. Whatever the status is, you will give to indicate that it's successful or not. And when it's successful, then you are just displaying it. And the size doesn't really matter. I mean, size does matter in the case like if you are returning JSON, for example, because we have like the cloud things here. If you are running like a 1,000 node cluster, your browser just blocks for 10 seconds because it's rendering the whole JSON stuff. But it doesn't really matter if it contains like 5 entries or 100 entries. That doesn't really answer the question.
It's not so much about, you know, the number of rows that come back, but the overall structure, because we don't know anything about the fields. It could be, you know, the data could sit in Mongo, in HDFS, wherever.
It completely depends on how you want to show it. I mean, if you just want to show the JSON structure.
No, in tabular form, like a table, right?
Okay. Yeah, but then still okay. I mean, you would have to iterate over the whole JSON structure to see the maximum of fields you have, possibly. And then just put the values in there. I mean, that's still okay, but it's more work in advance. I mean, what would be okay, or a general idea perhaps, like include a list of possible fields somewhere in the response. Because you can normally easily do that on the server, depending on your code style. and then use that information in advance to build a table up front.
Right, and if I may, one last question.
Yeah,
you had
please.
that
Not only one, hopefully.
setup regarding AWS deployment, and although you highlighted the problem, which is great, and I agree with, you didn't really answer how to deal with that. Could you reiterate that?
Because there is no generic way. I mean, what you normally tend to do is more or less like exactly the same as you're doing with the browser, accessing that instance, like building an SSH tunnel, for example, to get in the network. And you need some connection somewhere in the network, and then just distributing all the requests, like server-side stuff, acting as a proxy for you with a public endpoint. So let's say you have this 3-node cluster we had before. This one? No, this one. So you have the public host with a N3 acting as a proxy. So you direct every request to him. And he's responsible for distributing it in the network, kind of. So if you want information from the host with the ending 2, you just directly the request to 3 and say, give me the information from 2, because that's like network internal stuff. Otherwise, what would be possible is just assign like a public IP or host to every host, and then like accessing directly, but that sometimes just doesn't work, or is a little bit overhead because you're spinning up instances and destroying them on a, I don't know, regular basis.
Yeah, it wouldn't work in our case because in our case we don't have that centralized entity, but each of the drill bits of the workers exposes their own REST API. So we, you know, if you have a 1,000 node cluster, you would have 1,000 REST endpoints.
Okay.
Quotes.
Yep.
Right, but that's limited to AWS, right? With Google Compute
Not
Engine,
really,
you wouldn't.
but that's a typical example. I mean, you can have that in every environment as soon as it's blocked with a kind of a firewall. Normally there is like one entry point and not like all nodes accessible. If they are accessible, then it's completely okay, because you can directly access every of the instance. Otherwise you would need some kind of a proxy to get in there somehow.
Right, so it would be good as a kind of, you know, looking into the future to have some kind of best practice document around that cloud deployment setups.
Yeah, like I said, there is no real best practice because it's on the first hand personal preference, how you want to manage it, because if you have like a central entry point that it soon becomes your single point of failure, possibly, because if that one is down, you can't even reach something else, something along that lines. I mean,
or call it cookbook, it doesn't matter. You know, just here are 3 or 4 recipes, how to deal with that. Yeah.
How it would work, sure.
Cool. Awesome.
Any other questions?
Keep it up.
Hopefully. There. Yeah.
Hi. I have a question about streaming response. Have you thought about visualizing this streaming response from Solr, not waiting for the whole response, but taking...
Yeah, indeed, thought a little bit about it, but the main problem on this side is just you have to support different browsers, and this is why we are sticking with lower level of features already. You can do a lot more fancy stuff if you're targeting like higher level browsers, or like, let's say, current versions of like Firefox, Chrome and stuff like that. But as soon as the Internet Explorer gets in the door, you're pretty much lost, because even like current versions don't support like a regular feature set, let's say it like this. So you should try it, but you always have to think about like a fallback, and that in that case for me just makes double the work. So I stick with a simple approach, because that's more or less like I said in the beginning, like an entry point. While you are developing applications and stuff like that, I mean, you are not like using that on a regular basis, and your application runs like in parallel to it, because it does access the request directly on the server. So on the other hand, the question would be like, what is the advantage to do it like that?
Well, I mean, when you prepare a query using this tool, all you get is just the response from the Solr, right? Solr. But the Solr provides a streaming response where you get each row, and you don't have to you don't have to wait for the whole response if it's long time.
That's right. But what I'm saying is like, how important is it really on the admin interface? I mean, that's not like performance-wise.
Yeah.
You're using the, like, let's say once per day or perhaps once per week, something like that, just to check the examples. I mean,
Okay.
sure, that's for a reason that we have streaming responses in a production application, like to the end customer, which is used like once a second or even more. That makes totally sense because your application can start to work with it before it's completed. But here, that's like a little bit like, I don't really see the advantage of it. I mean, it's a nice to have feature, but in that context doesn't make much sense to me.
Okay, I have another nice to have feature. I think maybe with a better advantage. The last thing which is very hard to visualize, to understand or see in this application is debug query response. I mean the explain feature exactly.
Yeah.
Have you thought about visualizing that maybe?
Yeah, indeed. But I don't have a real good idea. I mean, there is, I'm not sure from which the tool is. On Solr PL, they have like explain tool.
Yeah, it doesn't work anymore.
Doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay, but they took a stab on it and tried it. I mean, it's really a little bit hard because as soon as you switch, for example, the explain output to the structured output, you just get the whole crap on your screen and you
Yes.
can even just look at it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, right. Completely agreed, but I don't have an idea on how to visualize that. I mean, what's the interesting part in it? If you just don't want to show everything to the user, you want to pay attention to different parts, hopefully that one which makes the problem. But how to figure that out? Because there is no generic rule to say it's like the third element is the problem. That's depending on your query, so there might be a little bit more logic involved than you have on the client. Maybe. But I'm open for ideas on that. I mean, I thought already when they opened that to the public, why hosting it on a separate site? I mean, like, I don't want my logs to be uploaded there. But it's like they are using server-side logic to generate it. Well, because it's more... Sometimes it has advantages to do it on the server because it's easier. Because like I said before, if you are doing it on the browser and you are doing it in a browser that doesn't support it, you have to think about either alternatives or tell the user like, guy, I'm sorry, your browser isn't supported. So they did it on the server side, and then you have sometimes a little bit more possibilities than on the server, on the browser. But I would say still, independent if you're doing it on the client or the server, you just have to have an idea how to visualize it and what exactly. Because if you have that idea and the concept of it, you normally can realize it on both sides. That's more like a conceptual question, I would say.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions so far? Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just curious if you have some concrete ideas for short and medium term improvements for the admin UI.
Yeah, like different. Like I said in the beginning, or one of the closing slides was like integration of the collection API for more Solr cloud related stuff, because that's possible right now, but you have to do it on the command line, issuing HTTP requests, stuff like that. The other one would be like integrating the schema API, maybe just to give more access to your schema, not like having to have the schema updated every time on the disk, reloading the whole stuff and then see how it goes. And a little bit while I talked with Mark Miller, who is doing the cloud stuff, about like different views on the cloud. So let's say we have two views right now, the radial view and the other one with the direct connections, like in between the collection shards and replica stuff. And we are talking a little bit about the use cases you have normally when you view those pages. So what information do you want to get out of it? And that's like primarily focused on just show me if everything is okay. And that's a little bit hard if you have 100 node cluster and it's like almost always green, but sometimes there's a red one in it, or maybe a little hidden yellow one. So what we thought about was like offering a table you could like sort and filter to say like show me everything which is not okay, or like everything which has a specific collection on it, just to see how how the shard distribution is, and perhaps even include like document count, because he told me that that's the thing he does, like accessing the cloud mode pages and then like hop to every instance just to check the document count to see if the distribution is more or less equal. and that thing like, yeah, working on these ones. Beside than that, I don't have specific ideas because the projects I use Solr in are like a little bit, I won't say limited, but not that large in size. So I'm still running with single instances and perhaps multiple cores, and that is like, I would say, covered somehow. But I'm always open to ideas. I mean, the whole UI is about like, if people tend to use it like in another way, I'm happy to change it. That's not like I'm doing it and I have my pointer on it and I'm saying, no, it's either this or nothing. So if you have any ideas, then just either post them on the mailing list or just mail me directly or open the Jira issue, whatever. Good. Then we somehow did it to 2:30. And we're good. Thank you.